right, we'll start in a little less than 1 minute. This is an opportunity to turn off or turn down the ringers on your cell phone. All right, welcome everyone. Happy December. Welcome to the December Board Accountability Committee meeting. Really happy to be here today to talk about our plans for next year and our strategic plan for 2026. This is also an opportunity to welcome our new committee member, Mr. Todd Rhodes. So welcome and thank you for your service. This past year has been a really productive year in terms of board accountability and the equity subcommittee. I think we've had some really fruitful discussions to inform how we move forward, and I hope that they've been beneficial to our superintendent as she starts laying out her vision for how she wants to take our district to its next place. So again, I invite you to turn off or turn down your technology, and I also invite our superintendent to bring her welcoming comments.
Good morning. Very excited to be here today. As Dr. Hoskins Brown has indicated, this is such a pivotal opportunity in how we move forward, coupled with the 100-day plan that was just released. It provides us an opportunity to look at our 2026 strategic plan through a different lens and potentially make revisions, and we have started that process. And we are really excited about getting the Accountability Committee's feedback today. I will be taking notes feverishly as this will help guide us as we continue to chart the path forward in the development and the revisions of our strategic plan. So welcome, everyone, and with that said, I will turn it over to Mr. Feliciano, who will kick us off.
Thank you, Madam Superintendent. I believe the chair has to
Yes.
adopt the minutes.
Thank you. So we will adopt the agenda and the minutes before moving into our strategic plan update. So I will entertain a motion to adopt the agenda as printed. Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Any discussion about the agenda? Any changes? Okay, if there are none, all in favor signify by raising your hand. Opposers may do the same. And any abstentions? Okay. The agenda is approved unanimously. Next, you were provided the minutes from our October 24th Board Accountability Equity Subcommittee meeting. They're also available in board docs for those of us who may be viewing this asynchronously. Were there any? I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes. Okay, it's been properly moved. And second, that we approve the minutes. Are there any corrections? Okay. All in favor of approving the minutes signify by raising your hand. Those who are opposed may do the same. And any extensions? Okay. So the minutes are approved unanimously as well. Now we will have a presentation of the Way Forward 2026 Strategic Plan update led by Mr. Feliciano and his team. Dr. May.
Good morning, and I certainly welcome our new committee member to join us to listen to the changes and the updates we're doing to our strategic plan. It is an absolute pleasure to be here today. This is one of my favorite topics to talk about. On the updates to the strategic plan 2026, today I'll be covering a rough draft of the plan. It is not the final. It is a rough draft. The drivers that led to these updates are clarifying the plan, creating an understandable plan that shows the connection from the board's vision all the way down to the action plans that are done at the work level. But most importantly, it's aligning the plan to the work needed to address the challenges that are listed in the 100-day entry plan report. and I love this slide. This is a summary from the school board retreat on the strategic plan session that was held. It is an interesting collage of work. Some people learn by listening, other people learn by reading, and then there are those that are visual learners. I'm one of them. And in the spirit of teaching and learning, this modality works for me, so I appreciate the opportunity to experience the board's work through the images created by Inky Brittany. And each of these areas I've looked at and I focused on to ensure they were addressed as we updated the strategic plan. Before we dive in and start covering the updates made, it is important for our community to understand the framework that is used to support our strategic plan. It is supported by the Georgia School Board Association and the Georgia Leadership Institute for School Improvement. This is a 10,000-foot view of the framework. It is designed to support a balanced scorecard approach that provides long-term strategic priorities, performance objectives, and measures that communicate and monitor our progress and successes. The key components of the frameworks are the strategic priorities. These are high-level areas of focus that the board identifies as being crucial for achieving its long-term vision and mission. It represents a purposeful and targeted effort to drive positive change across the district. They're too big and broad to measure, so they are broken down into performance objectives. Performance objectives are more manageable and help guide the administration's work towards achieving the strategic priorities. Performance measures, these are the KPIs. You can think of them as vital signs of the work's impact on the performance objectives. They offer insight into what is working well and what is not. The KPIs consist of two groups of measures, one for the board and public and the other for the administration. For the administration, the intent is not to wait for an end-of-year report. It's important to know if our strategies are making a positive change or not. So we do interim checks to ensure if corrections are needed, we can do them along the way. And finally, you have strategies and action steps. These are the actual work that is conducted, the priorities that drive the allocation of resources and the allocation of funds to bring us closer to meeting the objectives. So for the strategic plan to work, each component has to align and support the one above it. And as an example of a framework in action, for a strategic priority, let's say if you wanted to buy a house, okay, that is my priority. I want to buy a house. Alone, there's very little you can do, but you can break that down into smaller components. So one of the performance objectives can be you need to save money for a down payment, right? When we look at and we talk about SMART goals, and you say, I want to save money for a down payment, it is measurable, it is achievable, and it is realistic. Okay, saving money for a down payment. The missing pieces to that is it specific. I could save money in perpetuity. To what end do I save money? So it's not specific enough. And then you have, is it timely? It has to be time-bound. What is my time frame? That's where the KPIs come in. So it's a marriage between the KPI and the performance objectives is where you see those SMART goals. So the KPI, I can say, okay, I want to increase my savings to 20% so that I can achieve 20% of the down payment. That is typically what a mortgage company wants you to walk in the door for a positive review and approval of a mortgage. You need to bring 20% down. So if my house is $300,000, then 20%, I'm looking at a target of $60,000 that I have to achieve. So through the KPI, I have a target, I need a base. Where am I starting from? Is it zero? Do I have $10,000 to start from? So you establish your base, you figure out what your base is, and then you have your incremental yearly targets to achieve your end goal of $60,000. Once you establish your KPI, now you're going into the strategies. Strategies can be, I can ask Dr. Watts for a raise, right? I want to buy a house on the beach. I need more money. I'll be relaxed, calm. I think this will work. If that doesn't work, I can come up with other strategies, right? I could be an influencer. You know? Make some money that way. Or I can cut back on spending. There are a variety. This is where you become creative in trying to figure out how then can I impact this objective of saving money for a down payment to achieve my ultimate goal of that strategic priority of buying a house. So everything has to line up, everything has to support each other for it to work. Now we're going to zoom out a little bit more from 10,000 feet to 30,000 feet in order to cover the roles and responsibilities of the strategic plan components. On this slide, it covers the strategic side and the operational work. In the center, the dashed lines, along with community input, the board and the administration works collaboratively on defining the strategic priorities, the performance objectives, and the performance measures. The board then adopts the vision, mission, guiding principles, strategic priorities, performance measures, and performance objectives. Once the strategic plan is adopted, the administration then operationalizes the plan. The administration moves forward with developing strategies and action items and executes and monitors their progress and impact on the objectives. This is the strategic planning process we use for the current plan. In 2021, the district moved forward to replace the tactical navigation plan with a long-range strategic plan. A year-long process was spent with community focus groups, planning teams, action teams, along with multiple board meetings and cabinet workshops. The work of the group was the adoption of the strategic plan 2026. And I certainly want to point out I appreciate the work done on the participation in the process by our administrators, our teachers, our students, our parents, and our business partners. This strategic planning model consists of 4 phases, and we are currently operating in the last phase, implementation plan, and the 5th component, yearly reviews and updates. This is the continuous improvement process that we follow. This was specifically built into the strategic planning process to allow for adjustments based on internal and external factors. The strategic plan was not meant to be a static document. It was designed to be a living document. It is reviewed yearly by the administration. It is presented to the board accountability, and then it is presented to the board for review or for final adoption. Now we're moving forward into the update of the strategic plan. On the screen is the draft strategic map. It consists of 4 strategic priorities and 12 objectives. The 4 main focused areas from left to right cover students, stakeholders, human capital, and stewardship. All the way on the left side, you see safe, secure, and positive climate. This area was discussed extensively when we were reviewing the objectives and the priorities. Because of the environment we are currently operating in, we felt safety, security, and climate needed to be taken into consideration when addressing any priorities or objectives in the plan. Safety, security, and climate is the responsibility of everyone and needs to be considered when rolling out new initiatives and strategies. Across the bottom, you see transformation of culture. This was also discussed extensively. While it found its place under the third strategic priority and the third performance objective, the administration also felt that this is the responsibility of everyone. It spans all priorities and all objectives. The intent is to transform the overall organizational culture to address psychological safety, better working relationships, addressing silos, and ultimately increasing student belonging and engagement. Transforming culture is a significant focus of the strategic plan. Specifically under the strategic priority 1, this objective focuses on early learning, literacy and numeracy, and whole child development post-secondary readiness. So when it comes to addressing classroom instructional rigor and ensuring standards-based teaching across the district, these are priority strategies that will fall under these objectives. Additionally, priority strategies will be created to address the challenges experienced by our special ed and EL families. The comprehensive literacy plan, which is one of our priority strategies, the North Star, will impact these objectives that are listed. Under the second strategic priority, stakeholders, you have quality family, community engagement experiences. This objective focuses on 3 areas: communication, relationship, and partnerships. Under the communication objective, this is where the strategies will be created to promote a favorable perception of the district. And it will help to bridge the gap between the school system and our parents of special education and EL students. The second objective seeks to address the opportunities for engagement and address the perception of a closed-door practice. We want to make sure as we work through these strategies, once again, I'm a reference on the left-hand side. When we talk about a closed-door practice, I don't want Terry to pass out. He's going to pass out. We're not just opening the doors and welcoming everybody in. As we work towards these strategies, he wants to ensure that it is safe and secure. We still need to maintain that mindset because of the environment we operate in. When we create these strategies to address these challenges, that we look at that. Okay, is it safe? Are we still providing a secure environment? Are we impacting the climate? All right, we can move forward then. Finally, the third objective is a strategic approach to support school needs with the services of essential business partners. We want to leverage our expertise to understand what school needs and find external resources to support them. We want it to be intentional, we want it to be thoughtful, and we want it to be impactful in making the connections and ensuring student impact. Strategic priority 3, which is focuses on human capital, talent management for optimal employee performance. There are three objectives under there. The first one addresses the challenges in recruiting and retaining effective employees, especially in our high-need school. This objectives also require us to review the processes of hiring and the practices that exist today. We also want to recognize employees' contribution to the work of the district on a regular basis. While we have the Teacher of the Year and the Support Person of the Year, we are looking to expand these areas to be more inclusive of other employees. The second objective deals with professional development and training. This objective seeks to increase capacity to ensure our employees are well prepared to handle the challenges experienced at schools and the district. This will also help to provide strategies that address pathways for employee promotion. The third objective focuses on employee morale, which goes back to the overall organizational climate and culture. Priority strategies here look to address those psychological safety concerns, the better working relationships, cross-departmental central support to schools, and addressing the silos that may exist. Once again, this is the responsibility of everyone. It's not just HR. It's not just the superintendent. Everyone is responsible for providing this. That's why it's listed across the bottom, across all objectives, and across all priorities. The final strategic priority deals with stewardship, efficient, effective, and equitable resource stewardship. It has three supporting objectives. First one is conducting evaluations for continuous improvement. This objective seeks to identify areas for improvement and root causes. For example, the needs assessment that was done on our 6 low-performing schools. That work is ongoing, and we will receive the final report sometime in January. The work from this objective will drive strategies that can impact multiple objectives, from culture, recruitment and retention, professional development, to student achievement. This objective also encompasses the work from our internal audit department. Yearly, the audit department presents a summary of audits and the status of each management action plan. The second objective focuses on facilities and departments. This aims to track the long-range facilities plan work and ensure support and coherence in the school support structure. This will drive the central office transformation to ensure we are meeting the needs of our schools, especially the schools that are experiencing the most challenges. The final and third objectives revolves around the budget and the equitable allocation of resources. This is how funds are to be spent and achieving transparency in the yearly budget process. There was a lot of unpacking on this slide. The rest of the slides will focus on the specific key performance indicators. So, Madam Chair, I don't know if you want to pause here or you want me to keep going.
I do, and for a couple of reasons. One, I had a question about the headers for these strategic categories, and one is looking at our time and knowing that we don't have, like we usually have, time to go over. We have a hard stop at 11 o'clock, and I want to make sure that you get to the action item that we need to, and that is to approve the calendar. So my first question is just probably one out of ignorance. These columns line up with student, community, human capital, and resources. Is it out of vogue to have in strategic plans these explicit categories? Because otherwise, folks have to read all of this and kind of infer, oh, they're talking about student performance. Oh, they're talking about people. Oh, they're talking about assets. Is that how it's being done in strategic planning? And I just am not reading enough strategic plans to know that we're not using hard headers like that.
I use it for simplicity. We can certainly highlight key words within the plan to make sure they understand what area is being focused on. It is typical across districts to have these areas that I summarized, these 4 areas, unless there's a drastic need that raises to the level of a strategic priority.
So I'm just asking for someone who's picking this up and is going to look at it on first glance. It seems like those themes, those themes are implicit. It's like you read and you analyze to understand it. I don't know another analogy for like Joe Sixpack, but what else do we use for just a common individual who's not deep into strategic plans? For that individual, is this a format that the committee thinks is intuitive for them?
Can I just try to maybe clarify? I guess for the common everyday person, if you were given an elevator speech and the question was, what is the district focused on? What is the priorities of the district? Those 4 boxes at the top, in simple ways, without getting into all the metrics and the strategies, to me, illuminate what the response would be.
Right.
But I think your question is that it should be inferred.
Well, I think it should be explicit.
Well, that
Student
is,
growth,
right.
yeah,
That is our attempt to make it explicit, but is there an alternative maybe that you would suggest, a different
I
format?
think above that, I'd have a row that says students, community, human capital, resources.
Oh, so make it even more
Just
simplistic.
a header, yeah, not to take it away, but to put a header above it. A true categorization and not a descriptor. That's what I'm,
And what would we refer to that as, that header? We referring to these 4 things as priorities.
themes.
I think there's still priorities. It's just like a one-word encapsulation of what's in those dark blue boxes. So students, student growth and academic performance. Community, it's just a.
It's a structural
It's a
guide.
structural, I don't think it's another layer
Yeah.
at all. I think it's just a way to try and simplify so
Right.
that if somebody picks it up, they can quickly understand what those 4 priorities are. Because even as we read through this, and I realize how difficult, it is much more difficult to speak succinctly
Yes.
than it is to be verbose. So I understand the challenges that you face in this, but I think what Dr. Hoskins Brown is, how can we provide
Even more simplistic.
more simplicity in a complex document?
Yes, and it's interesting that you are highlighting this because what you are saying is actually the process we went through to get it narrowed. The words were already more verbose, and we spent over an hour narrowing it down. And so what you're asking us now to do is to narrow it even further.
Dr. Brinkman had his hand up. Are we saying
Same
the
thing.
things? Okay.
I don't even know if you need another bar, just above student growth and in a different color, whatever, just have students. And the next one. And that way, if somebody is glancing at this first, and they're like, I want to know what the district is thinking about on resources, they don't have to look through this whole, it's a different color, and they're just resources, I'm only caring about that right now. Or what are they doing about student? I fully agree.
Got it.
I don't think we need to change what's in the box now. Just smack everybody in the face with, this is the column for students.
Great.
Yeah.
We spent a lot of time talking about this, so.
Dr. Howard
This
Hall.
is just reminding me of trainings that we've had as teachers when you unpack standards. And that's what we're doing now, we're unpacking. So when you look at the phrase, you pull out the most important word, student. Look at it again, community. So it's the same thing. I think everybody understands it. So I visually see it. A line drawn at the top, students. Next line, community. So you're not changing anything, you just unpacked the topic again. So that's what you're doing.
That's correct. I mean, we know that we have goal 1, 2, 3, and 4, and we know that these line up with goal 1, 2, 3, and 4. But we know that because we're using it all the time. But someone who is not using this language wouldn't see that as clearly. So it's really just a framing to guide their eyes on the document, not touching what you read within. with that in mind, you have strategies and performance indicators on the following 20 slides. How do you want to proceed to get through that content in a way that you can get the feedback that you need without running out of time?
I can summarize, because we're talking about KPIs, I could summarize the KPIs. I don't have to go through this. Now that you've seen the strategic map, I just need to focus on the KPIs, and that should go pretty fast.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Are there any other comments about what we just talked about?
I guess, just from a process standpoint, if we have additional feedback and comments, do you want us to send that back to, how do you want us to process that?
I think, and that's where I was, because I had
Okay.
some KPIs I wanted to suggest, and I'm like, we're not going to get through all those. I think that we should email them to Mr. Feliciano if they don't come out in today's discussion.
Okay.
Absolutely.
And then he can digest them, summarize them, and shoot them back to us, and we can talk about them again. Thank you.
Can I ask one more clarifying question? This meeting is so important to me, so I'm sorry that I'm having to ask questions, but I really want the board's feedback. When you look at the map, is there anything missing? Because this map will drive everything else that we do.
It was, my inherent response when I read this in the packet was not that anything was missing. Now, I didn't have the same time to marinate on this that we sometimes have. So I may wake up on Friday and say, oh, I meant to say this. And in that regard, then I would send you a note. I didn't see anything that was inherently missing in this map. I did see key performance indicators that I thought was missing. I thought there were areas where there was a measurement that would get to what we're talking about here that we weren't measuring. Did anyone else see anything missing here or from? Go ahead, Dr. Howard
I
Hall.
says something missing, but when I look at safe, secure, and positive climate, and I look at transformational culture, classroom management always stand out to me, and it's never a word or a phrase that we enjoy using. We talk about it, we skirt tail around it, but that's a serious issue, and it needs to be addressed. And there's nothing wrong with saying anything about classroom management. You know, if you look at professional development, expectations, leadership, but where does it talk about classroom management? Because even if it's not a safe environment if you have a student in your classroom throwing chairs across the classroom.
Does that fall under the bottom row of the first column under students where we're enhancing experiences? I don't know that it's directly related to enhancing experiences, but it's definitely about culture. So does that need to be addressed somewhere in where we're transforming the culture, where classroom management is enhanced? I don't know exactly. I agree with you. I don't know where to put it, but where do you suggest? Professional, Dr. Brinkman?
I'm going, circle gets a square. 3, talent management under develop professional capacity. I mean, it goes with student, but that's taking a teacher, like last night, a teacher that's, was at Georgetown, did not go to school to become a teacher. So she's changed her career, thanks, Paul, Rev. She's changed her career, so I know that is probably something that individual is learning on a daily basis. So that is developing professional capacity. How do we help a new teacher and an older teacher that's now having to learn a different way that children are coming to school? Like the teacher that's got 30 years experience probably has tons of different categories of, well, this is how those children were raised, and this is when phones became in front of everybody. So I feel like that's professional capacity, and what can we do? And I know we've taken strides, but it's somewhere you're probably always going to be trying to excel and continue to push.
I'd like to, Mr. Moss.
I agree. However, I think I'd like that under student because we're also talking about our students' experience in school and a kid not receiving the education that they should receive because they're in a classroom where all of that is going on. So, I mean, while I understand the professional development, but we need to be able to say to parents, we're going to ensure that your kid is going to be in a classroom where they can learn. So So I don't know where to put it. but
I think
I
one of
think
the
that's what
things.
Dr. Howard Hall was saying, so.
Yes, I think one of the things we've talked about as we've started this process is that none of these things live in silo by themselves. And so what I'm hearing from you all in offering feedback is actually validating. In order for a child to have a good experience, you have to have the right staff, so the recruit, retain, and recognize is important. The professional capacity is important. And if the student is having a good experience, you would also expect reading and math scores to increase. And so you can almost connect the dots amongst several boxes and how they have to synergize in order for that experience to take place. And so we spent a lot of time earlier this week really trying to drive home the point that none of these things exist in silo. They require cross-pollination of effort in order for them to be achieved.
Okay. This is, I would like to recognize you, but I have a suggestion to address this issue and maybe help us move forward, but I do want to hear your comment. So we've said that there are cross-cutting issues, okay? Classroom management is cross-cutting. There's been a request to make it priority under student. There's been acknowledgement that it affects professional development, but there's not a slide that describes how the transformation of culture is going to occur, just that it needs to happen.
Yes, agreed.
So that might be one of the things of many things that, as implemented, will be part of the transformation, and we don't have a summary of the things that are going to be done to facilitate that transformation. Assuming if we do all 12 things that we see in the light blue boxes, there will be a transformation. But I ask that staff experiment with putting it under growth, putting it under talent management, or consider developing a series of recommendations for transformation. And then we can come back to it. And I'm going to jump ahead and say, but one of my suggestions for the calendar was to come back in January. I think we need a few more meetings. So I was going to ask that we have a meeting in addition to the ones that are proposed, one in January and one in June, that I'll substantiate the reason I'm suggesting June later when we get there. But in January, I felt like it would give us an opportunity to talk more about the way forward, the DAS-REMI, and the 100-day plan, because otherwise we're not going to talk again until March. And these conversations are important. So that might be an opportunity for you to present the edits that you've received from everyone in this meeting and via email.
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Ms. Grabowski.
Thank you. So 2 quick comments. On the left, the safe, secure, and positive climate, certainly agree with that. I would love to see us maybe even reframe it a little bit, because something like positive and inspirational climate that embodies safe and secure, but security is of the utmost importance, of course. But I want our schools to feel like places that are inherently safe, and it's almost like it's instead of it being such a physical, or I don't know, I just would love for it to be more embodied and not called out so specifically, and I know I'm not making sense. But do you understand what I'm saying, Dr. Watts? I just want it to be presented in a positive framework that inherently includes you feel safe and secure in the environment in which you're in. So, and also something that's not only positive, but inspirational, a place that really, like, wow, I'm so engaged, just kind of that positiveness. And then the other part, I love under culture that we're talking about breaking down silos. It's challenging to do that in a format like this because literally everything is in a silo, right? So I think one thing that could be helpful is I'm envisioning, a dashboard that has all the KPIs listed with everything across that shows what KPI, what the major connection is back to this framework, and then what the supporting connections are that allow us to envision how that KPI addresses all 4 of these columns. And every KPI may not, but I think that can help in being able to communicate in a snapshot how these are interrelated.
Very good. Thank you. Mr. Feliciano, can we proceed with your presentation and maybe leave the last 10 minutes of this hour to talk about the calendar dates? Will that work?
Absolutely. We can do that.
All right, thank you.
All right, going into the KPIs, you can see here we have 4 KPIs that focus on K2 students using Amira, pre-K students using GKIDS Readiness Check, kindergarten students using the GKIDS 2.0, and obviously we want to increase pre-K classes in the district. Our second objective, we have 3 KPIs. They all focus on GMAS. One is reading on grade level specifically, using cohort data, not our typical regular reporting data, but cohort data, 3 to 5, 6 to 8, same with mathematics, and then you have the overall ELA student growth percentile report that is done. And then in Objective C, you're seeing here that we're tracking dual enrollment and advanced placement, the end of pathway, and work-based learning. We're also looking at attendance, behavior, and student well-being on an annual state climate survey. Going to strategic priority 2, objective A, you have 2 measures. One is monitoring accessibility of our communication, and the other one is increasing engagement based on the hits on social media, the followers, concerning our websites too. Objective B, we have 1 KPI, which is increased positive student, parent, and staff perceptions as measured by the annual state climate survey. Objective C, we have expand and sustain partnerships that directly support student learning opportunities. Now going to strategic priority 3, we have 2 KPIs. One is to decrease the number of teacher vacancies, and the other one is to increase the retention of effective teachers, staff, and administrators. Going to objective B, we got 2 KPIs. One is improve the perceptions of staff support as measured by the TNTP Insight Survey, and the other one is to expand opportunities for professional development programs and training. And if classroom management skill is a concern of the board, that certainly can be a KPI that we measure. Looking at objective C, we got 2 KPIs. One is to increase teacher satisfaction. The other one is to increase staff satisfaction. So that covers all the employees in the district. Then strategic priority 4, objective A, we have report on implementation and findings of program evaluations and the comprehensive needs assessments that are done. Objective B, we have 3 measures here. One is concerning transportation with on-time bus arrivals. The second one deals with the school nutrition program, is the cost efficiency. And then the final one deals with our facilities conditions index to ensure we improve the efficiency and effective use of district and school facilities. And then the final objective C is our annual report on resource allocation. All right, going through the timeline. This is the work that the administration has done to date. There may be, as we spoke, more adjustments. That's okay. As we continue to review and digest the 100-day entry plan, there still could be more stuff that bubbles up for additional consideration. The 100-day entry plan is the playbook that will be used to help identify those priority strategies and adjustments to the strategic plan. These performance priority strategies are the ones that will have the most impact on achieving the objectives identified. If we do not see alignment between these strategies that we identify and the objectives, then we have to make additional adjustments. Moving forward, the timeline for the update of the strategic plan is on the screen. We have the superintendent's listen and learn entry plan, the board retreat, the extended cabinet retreat, extended cabinet meetings that occurred. I have the board accountability committee. We will transition to working towards refining the work on the strategic plan and moving towards strategies and action plans. That will occur this month and next month. We'll continue working on that. The intent was to bring back the strategic plan in the informal board meeting in February. with the adoption of the strategic plan in March. So based on Dr. Hoskins Brown's recommendation, she's looking for an update in January. With that said, I'll turn the floor over back to you. How'd I do?
Thank you very, you were awesome. You 6 minutes ahead. Thank you for that. And my request for a meeting in January does not mean that the work of the committee has to be completely done by then. I recognize that moves it up a month. I really want to facilitate conversation in that time about what we talked about so that you have all the feedback you need for what you're bringing back in February, and you're not getting questions you've never heard before in February, because at this point, the board will have only seen it once, and we don't do good when only seeing things once. We're a two-view board, so that would allow, that would allow us, well, I mean, it is. When we disagree, it's because we've only seen it once. I see Ms. Hall.
I want to ask you a question, Mr. Feliciano, in terms of your KPIs. One that I plan to push forward, as I've tried to push forward for the last 5, 6 years, is getting us to employee satisfaction through having a 1-to-1 ratio with experience. Right now, we've gone from 5 years, thank God, down to 2. But if you come here with 10 years of experience and wish to be hired to be one of our fine employees, we're only going to give you credit for 5 years. And I want to get to the point where if you come here with 10 years experience, you're paid for 10 years experience. So would that be a key performance indicator I need to email to you, and you see where it might fit in the whole scheme of things, and then you'll get back to me?
Yes,
Okay,
absolutely.
thank you.
Other comments? Mr. Moss.
And this is just a question. On strategic priority 1, the cohort data, I've only had 1 cup of coffee. What is the cohort?
The cohort would be, we would provide a report on 5th grade students with a look back. If they started with us on 3rd grade,
understand. Okay.
we're showing their progression.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
I have a comment about the performance indicators, or at least how I'm going to be looking at them. There are some that we only had 1 indicator that I think that we ought to have more than 1 indicator just in general. I have some suggestions for them that I will send. One of the things I'd like for staff to consider is there are indicators in previous strategic plans that have been pretty resilient, or that we've been able to get information from. There are also indicators that we've retained that are marginally successful, weak, or have really strong interacting factors. So for example, on-time bus arrivals, it has huge interaction with our human capital shortage. So we have, I believe, in recent years, discarded that measure because it's impacted by the fact that we don't have enough drivers. So it's something that we're going to perform very poorly in for reasons that we don't have all of our control over. So when we look at those kinds of performance indicators, I'm going to ask, how are we going to weigh that, knowing that we're going to do very, very poorly with that particular indicator? Is there another indicator to get to what we're trying to measure, or is there a way to pull out the variability that is associated with double and triple backs, which is going to make you possibly late for a pickup because you've got a double or a triple back?
Can I just respond to that one? So what that does for me, that particular metric, is it pushes our operations team as well as my team to look outside of staffing for other strategies. For example, this is just an example, so nobody think that this is the direction, right? How are we leveraging our CAT system as a strategy, a way to enhance how we transport students? Some of the things that we're putting forth around rezoning will support that metric. looking at adding another level of bell scheduling could actually help on-time bus arrival. So it gets us, I understand the staffing shortage, that's real, but what it does is it pushes us to look at other ways that we could potentially impact that strategy and not let staffing be the only driver.
Okay, I understand, and that's helpful.
I get it, though, I understand.
Well, no, it's just that the two things that you mentioned, this is the first year of really strong cooperation with CAT. When we first started having transportation problems, we tried very hard to get to the table, and there were obstacles for them that they could not overcome. So we didn't get anywhere on working with them to deal with our transportation problem. Some of those issues have seemed to have been resolved, but we'll see as this pilot project that they have with us now goes forward. What I was told when I first got on this committee and said, hey, let's do something called a Chevron report, and Mr. Feliciano and I sat down, and I said, we can measure this, and this, and we can set these as baselines. I was told it is not a good practice to choose measures that you know you're going to fail at. So measuring on-time bus rates is something that we definitely need to know. Do we want it to be a primary measure of success? Yes, we need, so you don't avoid measuring it. Sure. But how we weigh that in our strategic plan, because ultimately the performance of the team is evaluated by the strategic plan, and the performance of the superintendent is completely reliant upon the strategic plan.
They are clear. We
So-
are clear.
So,
We are real clear about that.
Okay, we're very, all right, I'm just, hear me now, believe me later, this is just putting it out there. Ms. Grabowski, and then we're gonna move to calendar.
I can remember. So I agree that there are certain KPIs that are going to have more of an external influence than others. So I don't know if there's a way to capture that, just to be able to present information, because I do think context matters, but I also do think it's important that we make sure that it stays in there for the reasons that and I'm not suggesting you're not saying that, but for the reasons that Dr. Watts said, how do we move forward on that? And then the question I had about the KPIs, some of the KPIs include numeric targets, while others do not, that could be measured numerically. Do you anticipate adding numeric targets to
ma'am.
those that don't currently have them?
Yes, ma'am.
Perfect.
Yes.
All right. Thought so.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to identify some, these KPIs that we identify, it points to the urgency of the matter at hand. When we say on-time bus arrivals, why, and like you said, there's external factors possibly beyond our control. We don't have enough drivers. We got to do double backs, triple backs. But the impact to the student, the end result, when it comes to breakfast, when it comes to being on time, raises the urgency of a metric that needs to be monitored so that we can all together huddle to figure out what creative ways can we solve this, because we don't want to know in the end when a school fails that, yes, half the students weren't there on time.
That's really helpful. For some that are just that important, it may be helpful to identify a primary and a secondary indicator. Like, not that both of them may be assessed, but, okay, here's the main indicator that we think is going to be the proxy for this issue, and if for some reason we don't have that, we don't have those data, or we can't have that measure, there's another datum that can tell us how we're doing in that area. It's not the one we prefer, but it's one that can also give us similar information. Okay, more comments on this? I think you're going to get a lot of email. Were you about to say something?
Just that I'm thinking back to those of us who were on the board where we discussed having a hub. A hub would certainly solve the situation, but it goes over into another area where we're talking about communication and,
Security.
community popularity with the idea or not, unpopularity. So we have some solutions. I think I'm going to be returning to some of those to just think about given the dire situation that we're in now. Before it was more philosophical, now it's, real. So, thank you.
You have before you the dates that were recommended for meetings, and that's for this body, the Board Accountability. We all, if you serve on the Board Accountability Committee, you are also on the Board Accountability Equity Subcommittee. But the meetings of Board Accountability are proposed as March, July, and October with the dates provided. And for the Equity Subcommittee to do a deeper dive into equity is April, August, and November. My suggestion is that we reconvene in January to look at the timeliness of the strategic plan, the 100-day plan, and to have one more discussion on it. I also suggest June, because at that point, we will have all gone through all the graduations in May. We'll know our graduation rate, we will have seen our certifications, and I think that would be something good to talk about, just in terms of what our outcomes are for dual enrollment, AP, our different credentialing, that sort of thing. And it will keep us from having not convened in so long. Are there any feelings about that?
So would that be June, July?
No. No, it would be in addition to. So our calendar, as I perceive it, and Mr. Feliciano or Dr. May, you can correct me if I'm wrong, our calendar evolved to staff products for us to discuss, when data was going to be available for us to discuss. What I am proposing is that we have 2 softer meetings where we have more time just to talk, and we're not just drinking from a fire hose of information, but we have time to talk with each other like, oh yeah, remember our last meeting we talked about this? I've been thinking about it. So it's an opportunity to create conversation around these topics. Yes, Mr. Feliciano?
Yes, Madam Chair. During this time period, student record is pretty much locked to finalize records for the State Department of Education, so we really won't have access to that information.
So we won't even
that
have
meeting.
preliminary data? I mean, because the children will have walked
It'll
across
be-
the stage with all these ribbons, so there's got to be at least a preliminary.
We would have to put a disclaimer that it is our best guess,
Sure, sure.
not necessarily actual. I'll let Christy
Miss
Collin-Rylander, our statistician, answer these questions.
So with the outcomes other than graduation rate, we certainly can provide some preliminary data pending, the final student record data collection. For graduation rate, it does get a little bit more complicated because that requires an additional state data collection, the cohort withdrawal update collection, which occurs in August and September. And so that is really what determines the final graduation rate, is the updates made through that application. So that would be the one that I would be a little hesitant about promising in June.
I understand. I'm not trying to create a staff report, so let me soften that request a little bit. We will have all gone through graduation, and often we have a lot of discussions in between those ceremonies, how we're doing, what we're seeing. I felt like June would be a good time for a board discussion. Some of you may recall that we used to have board topics, a board discussion prior to our informal meeting. We've not started that. We've done this really cool practice of having our committee meetings before the board meeting. And that's great because all of us are here and we're participating in the discussion, but we're still getting a lot of information and not interacting. So I'm trying to create 2 meetings where we can interact. So there's not a hard demand on staff for what is available in June. And if we need to cancel the meeting for reasons that we can't foresee now, fine. But I'm suggesting that we put January and June in our calendar to optimize our opportunities to talk about this kind of stuff.
Madam Chair, just to clarify, because we're in December and we're talking about next month, how does the committee feel about June 23rd, which would be the 4th Tuesday of the month? I believe?
January?
Is that the 4th? January, yes.
That's my birthday.
That's my birthday?
That's my birthday.
That is great.
23rd.
No, my sister's birthday is that day. My birthday is today.
Happy birthday, Dr. Hoskins
Hey,
Brown.
working on my birthday. I forgot.
Or 30th.
So looking at January 23rd to get that on the record, I already have that on my calendar from years past, so does that? Yeah, I just hold all those dates because life could change. Any concern from committee members about January 23rd? Okay, Mr. Feliciano, I don't hear any concerns. There's been a motion to accept the meeting dates of January, March, July, October, April, August, November, and June for Board Accountability and Equity Subcommittee. Is there a second? Second. It's been seconded. All in favor signify by raising your hand. Those who are opposed can do it. Okay, it's unanimous. So it has been passed unanimously that those will be the board dates. If you have comments about the presentation today, please do email that information to Mr. Feliciano so the staff can digest it and bring it back to us at another time. Thank you for your time at this meeting, and welcome again to Mr. Rhodes. We're happy to have you. Thank you.
You have to email it to her.
That concludes the Board Accountability Committee meeting. We'll move into informal session at the chairs.
Hard stop.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, so,
We got 2 minutes?
yeah.
2 minutes, let's do it.